Welcome to Surviving the Black Church, a podcast that sheds light and brings awareness to religious trauma and dismantles oppressive systems within the Black church.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Surviving the Black Church podcast, where we are unpacking Black religious trauma, Black empowerment, healing, and all the things related to trauma recovery. And my name is Jonathan, and I am here with my co-host, Nikki G. And yes, and this episode is going to be very important and very critical because we are in a time of transition. We are in a time of a lot of deconstruction, a lot of restructuring. And I wanted to bring this guest on because this guest has so much value to offer, and it is very important for us to have this conversation. And Nikki, I know you and I we met on Clubhouse, and I think I met B around the same time that I met you. And both of you were doing these rooms on spirituality. You were doing rooms on like spirituality around cults, and B was doing rooms around spirituality regarding just ancestral connections, ancestral spirituality. And I know when I think it was around the pandemic time for me, and I felt more inclined to go to your rooms, Nikki, than I was with B's rooms. But this is something that I wanted to kind of, before we even bring on the guest, and I want to introduce her and everything, I want us to talk about the things that we have been taught and programmed as Black people to fear and avoid, and spirituality and different forms of spirituality, especially spirituality connected to African people, Black people, is something that I know for me, I was taught to avoid. So,
Same.
yeah, right? And I still am a little kind of fearful of a lot of spiritual, and I think it has to do with, our trauma abuse or trauma history. I don't know what you think about that, Nikki, just in this area of fear and avoidance.
Yeah. We've been generationally and historically taught to have disdain towards our African ancestry and spirituality. We've been taught that it is considered demonic. I've told a lot about my history within the Black church, and when I was involved in a lot of cults, and I was connected to a lot of deliverance ministries. And for the ones that didn't do it right on the spot at the altar and smack some oil on your head and try to call something out, the ones that were a little bit more, okay, you fill out the paperwork first. When you look at what they call the demonology hit list, they list a lot of different things, from Pilates to yoga to Kundalini to breath work. And then there it was, good old African spirituality, anything dealing with African religions, they considered it demonic. And when our people were brought over here and enslaved, a lot of the religions and the connections that we had was stripped from us, and we were forced to adopt Christianity. And so a lot of the history has been, has disappeared from a lot of our people. So now in 2024, for someone who's been raised in the church and family's been raised in the church, when you hear, you're doing tarot. Oh, you're looking at reading books about hoodoo. Wait, what are you talking about? You're going to take this and you're going to mix it. Like, that just causes people to just run. There's a bodily response to it. It's so embedded in us as a people. Like you said, you resonated more with my rooms than you did B's. And it's like, why? Your body clenched up and feared it. This is a problem, y'all. This is a problem. So I'm right there with you. I think this is a good disclaimer to say, we've been robbed, y'all. It's time we learn about our history. And if you choose not to practice a lot of the whole gambit of African spirituality, that's fine. But we got to deal with this thing that's embedded in us, that it's a thing for us to be afraid of who we are as a people. And so we're just starting it off like that. We're getting into it today, y'all. So if this is not your type of topic, you might want to hold off and then come back and have some courage and come back. But we're getting into it with y'all today. So I'm excited for you to introduce our guest.
Yes. Thank you for that. And I think it's important for us to both bring that in before we talk about this, because that is the end. That, like you said, that's demonic. Divination, that's demonic. That's a witch. We've seen it in social media. We've seen it in, just popular culture. And it's all these different labels and these names that people may or may not understand. And it's like, well, what is that? Right. And so, how about we talk about that? How about we just unpack that? And
Mhm.
so, this episode is really about addressing those fears, addressing that avoidance, but also about reclaiming those practices and
Yes.
connecting back to our roots, back to our ancestors, back to the things that we, our origins and the ways that we survive through life, and making those connections happen. And how can we apply and integrate those things during these challenging times? And so, without further ado, joining us today is Brooke, or B. Sanders. She is a fearless Black woman. She is a self published author. She is an event curator, and she is an intuitive reader. B has been guiding our people to be the highest version of ourselves through practices like the tarot, the dream interpretations, ancestral channeling. She is a fierce advocate for the Black empowerment movement, self care, and spiritual wellness. So, Brooke, welcome to the Surviving the Black Church podcast. We're so happy that you're here. So glad that you made it. So, welcome.
Hey, come on, introduction. I mean, you better reaffirm me, okay? If I didn't know who I was, I know who I am.
Mhm.
Okay? Yes.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be having this conversation. So grateful for you, Jonathan, and for you, Nikki. Let's get into it.
Yes. 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 All right,
Yes.
Jonathan, you wanna start us out?
Yeah, so let's just talk about it because well I think it might be helpful for you to kind of tell us what your journey was like, you know, because I know you're from the church. You're from the Black church, and telling us more about your journey as far as how did you segue into ancestral spirituality? Like, what inspired you to explore that? Like, what went into that decision making process? Because I would like for our listeners to hear that because we don't get a chance to really unpack that. Like, what made you kind of transition over into that space?
Yeah, absolutely. Share briefly about grew up in the church through and through. I'm talking Bible study, children's choir, usher board, folding the programs, breaking up the saltine crackers for communion. Every part of the church you can think of, I was there with the slip and my big sister and my grandma, and we were in church every Sunday. And I just remember my experience in the church, even though we did all of those things and we'd go down to like altar to like hold hands and to pray. Like, my granny never caught the Holy Ghost. My grandmother never let the pastor anoint us at our crown. Like, it'd be like, okay, come sit down. But we were still all of the things with praise dance and stuff. And so, like, I remember Vocation Bible School, Father Abraham had many sons, and also just memorizing the books of Bibles and even memorizing my favorite scripture, which was the Lord is the light of my salvation. Right. And so through that, I started when my grandma passed, I started to have some spiritual attacks. Now, I've always been intuitive, always been a child that might hear some voices and not see anything. Certain movies like would give me extreme nightmares. I would always feel like the wind was speaking when there was a storm. I'd be like, if you just talk to the storm, it'll just blow away. Like you can literally call a storm until it don't come and the storms will always pass over our house and all of those things. But when my grandma passed away, and she passed away when I was turning around 20, February 22nd, and I just remember certain things that made me question Christianity and its integrity and its purpose and what I've been taught about community and sick and shut-in lists. For example, she was sick, but I rarely saw the pastor checking on her, or I would notice that people in the church were extremely gossipy, even as a child. Or I remember she used to make sure that my pastor always had his water, his cranberry juice, and like starch pressed whites for like when somebody got anointed and they lay hand or caught the Holy Spirit. And I remember one Sunday school because she never made it to Sunday school because she was preparing all those things. She was a retired nurse. I remember one Sunday school, one church, he did an attendance thing where he called off everybody's name in the middle of church that hadn't been attending Sunday school. And I was like, "This is so messy." And so there was almost a fear about being obligated to a pastor, which made me wonder if this said pastor had like some other things that were going on. And of course, he ended up being divorced and some other messy things. But when my grandma passed, and I noticed that a lot of these people that was in this congregation at this church didn't even, show up for her repast or, check on her well-being, it made me question what exactly was the sick and shut-in list, and this doesn't feel like community unless it's beneficial. During the midst of that time, too, I was going through this I think I know everything type of phase. So I'm in the projects, I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm, at school, trying to do things more productive, but still having that St. Louis, because I'm a St. Louis girl through and through, still having that St. Louis, you ain't gonna talk to me, punch first, ask questions later. And I started to have very bad dreams in this dorm, right? And I would remember in the dreams being under this attack and this spiritual attack and just shouting like the Lord is the light of my salvation in the dream. In every dream, it would be like a hand trying to like take like just right there on my third eye, and I would just be terrified. And I just felt like depending on which dorm I was in, there was certain energy, like I would feel differently. I didn't get these nightmares until I moved to the eighth floor. And it seemed like everybody on the eighth floor was starting to drop out of class. And so I started to, now that I know what I know now, I'm like, who knows what type of energy had been harvested there, like, and all of these different things. But in that time, I went real radical, y'all. And so I was on this chat site, like, hey, I'm having like, I feel like I'm having spiritual attacks. Like, what's going on? They're like, are you watching Harry Potter? I'm like, I love Harry Potter. They're like, you can't watch Harry Potter. You need to be praying. This is Jesus trying to get your attention. You can't listen to Rihanna, Illuminati, like all of this stuff. So I went like full radical Christian. Like, I'm praying, I'm talking to God. And that's all from there. I just tried to develop the closest relationship to God, even though I wasn't going to church. Fast forward, I'm pregnant in a domestic violence situation. And I just would pray the spirit of discernment. In the same Bible my grandma bought me when I was 13, although she was no longer there, I just always prayed a spirit of discernment to know, like, what am I supposed to be doing, God? Jesus, what am I talking to? I don't feel comfortable going to certain churches and them laying their hands on me. I don't feel like this is my destiny. What am I supposed to do? And fast forward, yeah, fast forward right before the pregnancy, I have a dream. Now, by this time, my grandma's been gone a good year and a half. I have a dream where the place where I always used to be drinking and smoking, that my grandmother walks into that place, sees me throwing up in the toilet with a coin purse that she wore in real life, looks at me, shakes her head, and walks off. And so around that time, I stopped smoking. And it just made me question. I'm constantly praying for discernment. I'm reading the Bible. It's telling me we're the forgotten people. Now I'm exploring Hebrew Israelites. These people seem a little angry all the time. But that dream spoke to me and it felt so real. And it actually shifted the trajectory. And I don't think my grandmother is fully gone. She's talking to me. She's speaking to me, and this is the way. And so from there, I felt like there wasn't a place for me because I didn't know who to ask or to go to church because these were things that were deemed demonic. These were things that were deemed, witchcraft. These were things, dreams, like, even though Joseph was, a prophet, like he was the only person that had the permission to dream. Anybody, you know what I mean? Like these gifts were all, it was almost like a shame to have them or to even have curiosity because also you don't question God. So those components led me to believing that there was no place for me to be spiritual or me to be in religion. And I moved to Dallas and I go to this Pan-African store and there's all these different women doing all these different things, a drumming, someone's doing tarot, but they look like me. And it expanded my mind. And from that moment, I had a friend and she really taught me about ancestors and, oh, they come to you in a dream. Like that's normal, and it's so, and I was working in an area where I was connected to people that were Hindu, people that were of Islam. And I'm like, there's no way that Jesus abandoned these people based off of the region that they decided to be born in. That's not the Jesus that I know. And now I feel like that prayer of discernment led me to a more interpersonal relationship or a interpersonal relationship with God than that establishment ever could. So yeah.
Whoa, let that sink in. Yeah. Nikki, did you have any thoughts or any
No,
reflections
I'm
on the
loving the story.
unprecedented
I wanna
this?
I wanna hear what happened next, as
Yeah,
far
I'm
as,
like, woo.
you connecting with people that made, connecting with your ancestors, especially in the dream world, normal. They kinda normalized it for you. How did you take from that, your grandma's presence kinda basically, giving you a jolt to say, "Hey, this is not the way." How did you continue on this path and say, "You know what? I wanna read up on this. I wanna learn on this." What did you do next after going to the Pan-African store?
Yeah, so after going to the Pan African store, and there's about a 3 year just, about a 2.5 year break from that. Cause I'm gonna let y'all know it's not like that happening and I was just over here like, let me lead a community. I was outside. Okay. I'm like, I'm not gonna smoke, but I'm gonna get a little tipsy, I'm a mama. I got like real, very still at the hair store, getting my bundles,
Mhm.
driving around, listen to my music. Okay. And a few key things. There was a moment where I had contemplated because my domestic violence situation had gotten so intense that I had contemplated unaliving myself. And I remember driving as far as I could to this quick trip or whatever and not thinking my son's like 3 months. My child's father had stole my phone and stuff, screenshotted stuff on Facebook. So I'm like, I'm gonna run in quick trip, get a track phone, and I'm just gonna drive. So that's where my mind is. Super fight or flight. Left him in the car like I'm gonna run in there. I come out the car. This is around the same time because again, I'm living in Ferguson. This is around the same time Mike Brown passed away. So all police officers are just they already assholes, but they just even more. Can I curse on this podcast? They even more
Yes.
assholes.
Mhm.
So come back out, the police is outside. And they're like, do you know it's a felony to leave a child in a car? It's people like you that don't deserve kids. We should arrest you right now. And I remember, and this is how I knew I gave up on life because I was talking to the police like, I don't give a fuck. And I was like, look, y'all, I don't have no warrants. I got insurance. And I've been having a real fucked up day. So whatever y'all gonna do, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And they looked at me, got in the car, and drove off. Then this homeless lady starts approaching me, and I'm like, I really hope this lady don't ask me for no money. You know what I mean? Like, I done went through all of this, and now a homeless lady from the shade, like, just give me. And I'm looking, and she looks like a homeless, distorted version of my granny's best friend. Now, again, this is about a year after the dream. She looks like a distorted version of my grandma's best friend who had passed away like a little bit before my granny. She comes up to me, and she's like, I don't know who you are, but don't make permanent decisions off of temporary circumstances. So this is around 2014. She starts singing I Won't Complain. That is a solo that my Aunt Dorothy, my grandmother's best friend, sang every Sunday in church. So at this moment, I'm like, I've been praying for discernment. I'm still in St. Louis at the time and I'm traveling. I'm taking this with me to Dallas. I'm trying to fill in kind of some gaps here, but I'm taking that with me to Dallas with knowing that I'm in this new area and I'm out of this domestic situation, but I found this Pan African store and I know there are some spiritual things happening because this is divine intervention. If I ever saw it, they literally brought the angel to my doorstep. You know what I mean? To my feet, right? So these things propelled me and compelled me to explore it because I'm like, they're showing up for me. This does not feel demonic. And I can't trust what a pastor has told me because his track record has been more chaotic and traumatic than anything that these ancestors have spoke to me in a dream or in a physical space. And so when I get there and I meet this friend and she's telling me about an altar, I learn how to just put a cup of water out, just have a picture out. I'm living with someone at the time and just a candle. And I got like a Bath and Body Works candle because my family was super Christian. I'm like, I don't want them to ask no questions. So it looked like just a picture of my granny, a little glass of water because I might be thirsty and I want to smell like, vanilla blossom today, in my room. And so from there, I just would pray regularly and just, Granny, if you can hear me, da 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 da. Granny, if you can hear me. And she would show up in different ways in a Luther Vandross song, in a scent, in a taste that I might acquire. And it was such a beautiful experience. And I started to spend more time with those women in that community that allowed me to really start to journal about what I see, what I dream, what I feel, and how they show up for me. And it kind of weaved in with the hoodoo, right? Because my grandmother never came to me and woke me up and was like, hey, I'm a hoodoo woman. It was don't sweep over my feet, spit on a broom, don't split a pole, ammonia in the bathroom. You know what I mean? If you don't you leave out the same door you came in, and so there was those hints of things that occurred, but never a conversation. Certain spices created, natural remedies created. And so she led me just a few bird seeds for me to reclaim things that were in our lineage. Mhm.
Wow. And you know, this is, and for the audience, these are the things that are being called demonic. You got to put this in, we got to put this in. This is what you're describing is what is being called demonic, right? And it's
Mhm.
like, but these are the things that you relied on for your survival.
Yes, it is impossible for these things to be demonic because God created me and my ancestors guided me and saved my life. You can't tell, you don't know my ancestors better than me, baby, because I come from their blood, right? It wasn't demonic when y'all was using the pastor's love offering to buy an extra pair of shoes, right? It wasn't demonic when there is infidelity going on and the first lady is trying to discreetly leave and divorce, right? It's not demonic when they're trying to chastise younger women and root their whole rhetoric in misogyny, but somehow tapping into your intuition, feeling empowered, your ancestors meeting you at your feet and saying, this is not the way, through a song, a recipe, or quite literally a person coming up to you with the message is demonic, somebody's lying. And it sounds like colonialism.
That part.
Expound on that, please. We're already there, so go ahead
We
and just
going
keep
down.
keep
Yes,
digging. The C
in.
word, you brought it up. Go ahead.
Since we
When
there with the colonialism, right? It sounds like you're telling me what somebody else told you. So now I gotta get to the root of who told what. And so now at this time in my life, now I'm an Africana studies major, right? And so even more in depthly learning that certain pastors can't even get paid if they don't do a certain type, teach a certain type of doctrine a certain way, right? And there is this patriarchal type of idea of how you're supposed to show up in the church, right? This idea that anything that looks like us, that comes from us, is demonic. And what I mean by that is even call and response comes from Africa. Even the hymns come from Africa. The reason we feel convicted in our spirit when the drummer kicks the drum is because sacred drums are literally our alchemy. We brought the spirit to the religion. And when it was practiced in Ethiopia, because a Christian love to tell you, we was Christian in Ethiopia. Everybody ain't Ethiopian. But if we gonna talk about Ethiopia, even when it was practiced there, it was not perverted to persuade or make people feel like them being slaves, them being in shadow slavery, them being raped and violated was because they came from a certain people, and that if you ever think that you will achieve anything in this life, you got it twisted because you're going to hell and you just need to celebrate how heaven's gonna be because on here, this is my land. That's a white man. Jesus ain't never said none of that. So why are we trusting the white man when it's convenient, but trying to be radical when we're outside of this structure, when stepping into your spiritual power in itself is the liberation that you need? At some point, there are going to become some points of tension between how you're choosing to be a Christian and how you're choosing to be there for Black people if the way you practice Christianity is rooted in a colonial construct to get you to separate further from your intuition that your ancestors strategically intertwined into the Southern Baptist Church. Because when we talk about even the Kojic Church, Charles Mason was a hoodoo. When my aunt Rosalind gave me a pastoral anniversary program from 1965, in the back of the program, they were doing a mortgage burning ceremony. All I saw was a candle, a Bible open, some mortgage papers, and some people standing around. Baby, if that's not hoodoo, I don't know what is.
I'm glad you're saying that. Because some listeners might be out there like, okay, what are you saying? There's a lot of things that's in the Bible. There's a lot of rituals that happen in the Black church that we don't even realize where the origins come from. That is definitely one. Are there any other examples that you can pull up to say, okay, y'all think this is just Christianity 101, but the roots actually come from us? Anything that you can think of? I mean, I'm maybe communion. I don't know if that is one, things of that nature, the way that we do things and rituals that we do.
I would definitely say even the gathering and the fellowship and the singing, the hymns, right? If you really listen and you connect hymns to blues, all blues does is change and take God out and implement the woman or the person that's then broke their heart, and they do the same type of tune, right? To let you know their struggle, let you know their heartbreak, let you know what they're overcoming. So the way that we listen to music, it is very African, right? The way they would sing certain songs and then still pick cotton, right? The way we wear our hair, right? Because you would braid your hair and then go into you can go to you would see maps. The way they gather, the praise house was the only sacred space where you could gather. So a lot of the liberation and getting free was in that church place, right? Because that's the only place where massa wouldn't be. Even when we think about natural remedies, because when I look at it like the laying of the hands, baby, that's Reiki. You strike a certain chord on an organ or a procession, and then all of a sudden people catch the Holy Spirit. Sounds like an ancestor passing through to me. Another form of possession.
I mean, we need classes on this for people that are segueing out or trying to maybe hold on to their faith, but deconstructing a lot. And like you said earlier, colonialism is at the core of a lot of it. And Jonathan, I promise I'm gonna hold my mule with this. But with that colonialism, what you've been talking about, this speaks of the trauma bond that
Hmm.
we as a
Mhm.
people have had with the white race, and those who say they define what morality is. They define what is demonic and what's not demonic. And it's very interesting that everything that speaks of our culture, our rituals, and who we are as a people, that is demonic. And whatever they want to do, their conquest to take over this and to take over that and to continue in colonialism, they don't consider that demonic. They consider that to be inspiration from God. From that to the Ku Klux Klan doing what they did in the name of Jesus. So it's very interesting how anything that results in how collective we were as a people back then, how we did things in a communal way, like you said, from the worship, from the praise break, from the
Even
laying
from
on
the
hands.
missionaries, right?
Come on.
There used to be a time where Black missionaries, right? A lot of the people that got into like governing positions and stuff in Africa or whatever, they were pastors and things, right? So even the way we would mission in Africa when we went back to Africa would be rooted in that Black liberation, and we could gather people to come over, and that ain't that wasn't the program, right? So now we see these mass Europeans coming over, not to just teach, Christianity to the country or the continent that created Christianity, but more importantly, to basically hoard resources unless you choose to convert. And then somewhere these same missionaries are raping women and causing chaos. It's all rooted in colonialism, the strategy. And we try to separate church and politics, but politics don't separate from the church, because they'll
Come
be in
on.
there every time they need your vote. They'll be
Hmm.
in there every time they need your money. They'll be in there every time there is something that needs to be done, right? The church was a foundation of community, of gathering. You could be able to pay somebody's tuition. And now those things aren't even there because they've tried over time, attempted, and been very good at, if we're being honest, of dismantling anything that empowers people outside of that structure.
and it's severely deep rooted,
Mhm.
Mhm.
generationally deep, that
Mhm.
tree trunk, that root system, it is
Mhm.
vast for a lot of
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
I really appreciate that your grandma and you were so close, that you had a
Yeah.
living witness on the planet that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if she sat down and literally taught you on a piece of paper or she did it more by example of what you are connecting with now. You know what I mean? But a
Yeah.
lot of people don't have that yet. This is in their lineage. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I think what helped, correct me if I'm wrong, what helped you is because you had that relationship with her. You also saw the disparities
Absolutely.
in the church and you knew something wasn't right with some of this either. And it kept you and preserved you for what you're doing now.
Absolutely. And me and my grandma had a moment where it was a strange relationship. Like I tried to move out because I couldn't, or I moved out because I couldn't go to some party with this friend that she couldn't stand. Whole time that friend ended up being a horrible friend in hindsight, right? But she never sat me down and said, "These are the spiritual da 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 da." It's you're going to church. You know what I mean? When it's time to cook for the holidays, come in here, right? The house better be clean. Don't forget to hit the baseboard. You're sick. I'm gonna make a hot toddy. Go ahead and get the spice. Don't ask me what's in my spice. Just get the spice out the cabinet. Don't throw away no drawers. We don't throw away drawers and stuff like that in here, right? It was, and again, if I'm sweeping and I'm cleaning in a stern look, you know what I mean? So I witnessed a lot through just watching her. And when I found out that my great great grandmother, Amelia Holloway Ibaye, who I don't have a picture of, was a seer, it reaffirmed that this is in my blood. And that came out from someone in my family making a joke about my spiritual beliefs. And I'm like, that shit ain't funny to me no more. And they're like, well, nobody said they not real or anything like that. Your great great grandmother was a seer, da da da. So it's like I've been gaslit as if I'm doing something so da 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 when these are gifts that's been laying dormant in my ancestry for decades, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It lives with you. The one thing I do want to say is that just in hearing your experience, which is pretty much validation after being gaslit. I mean, the gaslighting of this reality that we have as Black folks, and it's
Mhm.
really just validating our lived experience. And as we talk about demonic and that is of the devil and things like that, and which I believe is all coming out of the colonialist mindset, whether you are Black or white, because there is
Mhm.
no, we're not differentiating between what the Christian missionaries did and the slave masters did to us and how they interacted with our spirituality is no different
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
the people that call African spirituality demonic and hoodoo.
Absolutely.
There's no difference. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. And so even further, right? Because, I'm an Alea in Lukumi, which is an African traditional religion. And so even with that, the elders that I sit at the feet of, right, that their foundation is on making sure that you acknowledge your ancestors, making sure that you acknowledge your elders, making sure that you spend time with those that came before you, and you learn at their feet and you gather and you help to serve and you be in community and you fellowship. You cannot again tell me that they are demonic when they put more energy in cultivating the community than a church establishment ever has when they want to pick and choose who they feel like can be led to speak to certain type of messaging, right? It's such an interesting thing because we've been manipulated and brainwashed into believing that what we choose to do is so demonic while venerating everybody else's ancestor at the same time. I can't go to a school. I went to Thomas Jefferson School, right? There's these Confederate generals that we have to drive down the highways all the time that is named that, right? The money in my wallet is of pictures of white men who intentionally violated and did not uphold treaties of other people to steal their resources. But Me calling on my grandma that made sure when I had fevers, she would knock it out in 30 minutes. I'm going to hell? Baby, nah, you gotta ask, you gotta talk to somebody else. If that's where hell is, tell them I said hello. Cause baby, it might be hot, but we know how to fry. And in African traditional religion, there is no concept of hell. You telling me I gotta wait till I die in this physical experience to experience joy while while at the same time, ironically thriving as you tell me that I need to be poor. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Okay,
The
okay,
math
so
ain't mathing.
you done dropped a lot of stuff, but that one where we are venerating everyone else's ancestors, my God, and don't even know it, don't even realize it. We are forced to do that, just like we were forced, to be enslaved. And I know that people that are listening could probably find a few scriptures to try to rationalize why this is still demonic and it's still not right. And you're a black person, well, we're in Christ, there's no Jew or Gentile, there's no black or white or all this other stuff like that. Yeah, I get you want to talk about humanity, but you cannot deny who you are. They've already done it. We're perpetuating it because of the trauma bond, because of the fear. And Jonathan and I are going to get into that, what that trauma bond looks like in another episode. But this is something that we're going to have to tackle as a people. And I'm so grateful as you were telling your story, you talked about when you got to Dallas, you met people that helped connect you in a greater way to the work that you're doing now, personally for yourself, and then the work that you're doing to help others. And I'm telling y'all, the times we're in, this is not the time to be very isolated. We need each other. We need each other to decolonize. We need each other to come out of this trauma bond that tells us that whiteness is right with everything across the board. How they define morality, how they define demonic. I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day. She said, Mom, who came up with the idea that this is a curse word and that's a curse word? But a lot of times these preachers are taking the scriptures and they are twisting it and perverting it and manipulating people and gaslighting them. Isn't that more of a curse than us, child? You better come on with that. But we've been so conditioned that this is the only way to connect. And if you divert from anything in this lane, then it's demonic and it's wrong. And so the question is, how do we reclaim? How do we come back? Because there are many people who they've had dreams like you when your grandmother came to you. They've been hearing voices. They've been feeling nudges. They feel the ancestors around them, but a lot of times they're denying it and suppressing it because they were conditioned to believe that it was demonic. They have a desire to do this and to mix this. They have all this desire, but they are afraid. What could you say to someone that's in that position that say, I want to know more, but I'm afraid to kind of cross over because I don't want to go to hell?
Would implore them to explore. There is not an actual scripture that I found that said that you cannot be curious about your spirituality. Because I looked, right? I would implore them to get into community, to pray over their community, to pray for discernment, to vet the community, right? Because even in the spiritual community, you will have charlatans, you will have all of those things. But I would say the first part of venerating your ancestors is acknowledging that you have the autonomy of free will, because so many of our ancestors had to hide things. So many of our ancestors did not have as many options that were allotted in this day. So give yourself the affirmation that it is your birthright to wisdom, to knowledge, and to abundance. That in itself, it will ripple through the winds of your guides and your ancestors. And I promise you, you will connect with the right people at the right time. Give yourself grace. Journal about your ancestors. Talk to your elders. Talk to your elders. Ask them about experiences of their grandparents. When did Christianity get introduced to the family? What other things were we doing outside of that? How did we survive hard times? what were the recipes, right? I feel like even for me as a spiritual practitioner and as a hoodoo practitioner, it's very rare that I even give people hoodoo work that I do because I came into this practice for survival, right? And hoodoo was used as a tool to make sure that our ancestors survived during chattel slavery and Jim Crow. You
Mhm.
know, it was used to make sure, and I talked about this with one of my elders, but it was used to make sure that I'm making sure my man get home, not necessarily because I don't want him to go anywhere else, but because when he leaves, he just might run into the KK.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
get so it was
Mhm.
protection.
Yeah.
And charlatans have perverted it so much, and we see Miss Cleo, and then we're like, now we've got it. Which Miss Cleo was also intuitive, right? But also you have to have discernment. And a lot of even her sensationalism was to say, finally, we have a poster child for psychics and how it's anti-black when the company that she worked for was white, and half the time that people called the line, they wasn't even talking to her,
Right.
right? So feeling empowered to ask the questions and sitting with your spirit and connecting with yourself
Mhm.
for sure. That would definitely be that would be my
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want you to talk about the we're going to segue into that cuz that's a very empowering message, and it's also very grounding to hear that on an individual level. But as we all know, with this Christian nationalism that is seeping through America right now with the Trump administration and all of our psychic energy being invested in this Christian nationalist movement, this colonialist movement, and now it's here. I'm wondering, with the tools that our ancestors used to combat it in that time of history with Jim Crow and slavery, how can our generations, what can we do to equip ourselves to resist these oppressive forces that are coming against our community, us collectively? I want us to talk more about that. What do you think about that?
Yes. So even though I voted, my politic has always been to be prepared for heartbreak no matter what in regards to the Democratic plantation or the Republican Party, right? And so with that, I felt like it was important for people to be doing spiritual work regardless of who's in position, because a president is not coming to save you,
Mhm.
right? Because the lesser of two is still anti-black on both planes, then what exactly am I benefiting from? Because on one side we have an overt racist, on another side we have someone that is okay with opting into capitalism when it's convenient. On neither side is there actual things where we can be fully empowered to tap into our spiritual authority, right? I'm just a little bit more crazy. So with that, I definitely feel like it's imperative to get into community, to get back into organizing, to get back into checking on your families, right? We've become very comfortable in our individualism. I'll just check on with them on Facebook. Them ain't my kids. If I had $1 for every time I heard them ain't my kids' daycare would be paid for a year. You know what I mean? I don't want to go over here because we are so far away from our community, but so concerned with DC when it's like get into your local politics,
Mhm.
get into the cleansing of your home. Those things are going to be imperative, and you're going to need to rely and to be able to be relied upon in this season because structures are breaking down. I'm not waiting on a president or a governor to do something with me. I'm going to call my cousins. I'm going to call my family friends. I'm going to tell them, if y'all got this, I got that. Bartering, right? We introduced midwifery to these colonizers,
Mm.
right? Then they told us we needed certifications for it and then pushed us out. And now we're fighting to be doulas and midwives and don't even have the proper funding, right? We were delivering our own babies. We were making our own meals. We were sitting at tables together, just eating with each other. We have to get back into community. Community is spiritual, community is liberating.
Yeah.
And to add to that, I think, what today's, episode has been all about community and connecting with our ancestors, connecting with their resilience, connecting with their wisdom, connecting with what they see that we don't see that can take us to the next level. Like you were talking about back in the day, hoodoo was a form of protection, for our people during that time. So, yes, we're about to hit some interesting times, but we need to recall and remember that we have, I know the Bible talks about a cloud of witnesses, but we're talking about our ancestors, they are that in the same. So people don't really see the symbolism between a lot of what is African spirituality and some of the things that are in the Bible that actually took place. And again, because we've been conditioned to not ask questions, to not explore, to not be curious. And if we are doing that, then we're usually labeled as, oh, you're about to become a heathen. You're about to slide out that door. Look, you're asking questions. You're looking and reading into different things. But that's how you learn. And we've talked about this on another, I think, podcast too. A lot of people who identify and affiliate as Christian, I've talked to people, why are you a Christian? And I don't want to hear, okay, I want to go to heaven and I love Jesus. No, how did that happen? Was this by your own volition or was it passed down because you saw mom and dad and grandma? And so this is how you identify? Or have you gone through the sifting process to be curious, to explore, to learn other religions, to learn other things, to say, you know what? I've done all that and I can actually say this is what I want to stay in. Or I might want to veer off to another lane. And so, this area that us as a Black people, you can ignore it if you want to, but it's so much more beneficial if we tap in and really reconnect with our roots because there's beauty in our roots. Go ahead.
And even with that, because it may not be in your destiny to not be a Christian, but I want people to know that you can be a Christian and be curious. You can be a Christian and explore. You can be a Christian and connect and learn from different religious beliefs, especially those that ancestrally are connected to you or your ethnicity, right? And like I follow this account, the Unfit Christian. And what I love about it is she explores Christianity after you separate it from colonialism and asks those questions specifically that everybody want to know, because I think that it's important to not feel shame around curiosity, which is your God-given right. I look at Jesus as another ancestor, as another messenger, as, someone that without Christianity, I wouldn't have the foundation of prayer. Without that Psalms book, I don't know what them little works that I'd be doing, right? But an understanding that I don't have to talk to Jesus to connect with the ultimate creator to understand or to receive my blessings, my covering, or my protection. I can respect this lane, but I'm not condemning anyone from choosing other lanes, and I'm not just closed off to those that came before me and how they choose to speak for me or speak or talk to me during this experience in this three-dimensional realm.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically just saying to the audience and to survivors that giving yourself permission to access free will, giving yourself permission to be curious, giving yourself permission to ask questions, giving yourself permission to connect to yourself, giving yourself permission to connect to community, give yourself permission to connect to God. Give yourself permission to connect to what already is existent. Giving yourself permission to connect to your ancestors. That permission, that access is so important and essential in being your highest version of yourself. I mean, it's all of this is inclusive in combating that fear-based rhetoric, because that's what Christian nationalism is about. That's what the political control coming out of the Trump administration is about. It's about control, it's about power, it's about dominance, it's about all these different things. You about to
And
say
even
something,
more
Nick?
so, yeah, I was gonna say, and even more so, what if I told you that these Christian nationalism been here the whole time,
Yeah,
right? They never left. The
yeah,
white evangelical never left.
yeah.
It was we got comfortable because it wasn't in front of our faces. Oh, they're not wearing the hoods,
Mhm.
so it's not a big deal. Let's focus on what we can control. But they're wearing the uniforms.
Yeah.
They're wearing the business suits. And
Mhm.
so with that knowing that they never left, your
Mhm.
alchemy has to be on 10 because I'm not walking into my business establishment and arguing with white
Mhm.
people that are going to uphold the system regardless. I'm
Mhm.
using the same alchemy as my ancestors, baby.
Mhm. 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 That part. That part. Yeah, and that's why we have to equip ourselves with all these tools and resources because their ancestors have never left. Their ancestors are working through their descendants. Let's talk about, I mean, come on. They are
People
still
talk
here.
about witchcraft and blood sacrifices and stuff, but police murder,
Yeah.
murdering innocent people, unarmed people, and that blood being spilled, that's not a sacrifice.
Mm.
Genocide is not a mass sacrifice. Eating the flesh and blood is not witchcraft. And the image that we have is not even depicted as the actual historical noted description of Jesus. Y'all got white Jesus in a silk press, and y'all telling me to look at that to liberate me?
Mm. Mm.
They gave him bundles and wanted us to worship that. You started it. B, you started it. You know them pictures up on the
Said the
wall where he
silk
got
press a
like
little
about
too far,
three or
but y'all
four.
know
Yes,
why do
yes.
why do white Jesus got a Dominican blowout?
See? 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 But there's so many different forms of colonialism that psychologically arrest us as a people. Yet we still been thriving. But there's something missing at the core of who we are. And I think a lot of it has to do with colonialism attacking us and how we see ourselves. A lot of us, we don't even realize we're talking about whiteness and racism. A lot of us hate ourselves.
A lot
We
of us
don't
hate
like
ourselves.
ourselves, and a lot of it, I'm sorry, but religion, a lot of it with Christianity and the trauma bond and how we even got stripped from our own religions and forced upon us has caused us to not like ourselves, to debase ourselves and to herald and to venerate other people's ancestors. But when we think of ourselves, we think of our history, we think of our bloodline and our lineage, we think about our ancestors who were enslaved and all that they went through. It's like, well, I have my faith now. That's not my problem. You know what I mean? I have my faith now. That was then. This is now. I'm staying in the present. And again, us not liking ourselves is a big way of how they continue to get a foothold in us collectively as a people. And I'm not going to name the person, but she used to say this all the time. Somebody's kind of an influencer on social media, and she used to say, "Y'all need to get the white man out your head." She said, "And you could have dreads all the way down to locks. You could have all of this. You can have the Pan African all up in your house, but have you got the white man and colonialism out of your head?" And how and not even so much how you see everybody else. How do you see yourself, your bloodline, your lineage, our people? How do we see that? Or are we just going to continue to regurgitate what whiteness and white supremacy upholds, that anything dealing with us is demonic and it's wrong and it's not beautiful? And I refuse. I've had my years where a lot of the cults I was in, my first cult was predominantly Black, but the rest of them were mostly non-Black. So I was one of, the few, spots on the Dalmatian. That's my little joke I say. But I learned to assimilate in those spaces. And when I came out, I had to look backwards. I said, that's why they never prayed for Philando Castile. And that's why they never prayed for Trayvon Martin. That's why they never said anything about it. That's why they only talked about abortion and being anti LGBTQ. Like, that's why they were like that. Oh, because that's what they were concerned about. They didn't really concern about us and police brutality, which is an immoral act as well. So I had to start decolonizing and understanding the experiences I had and say, how do I get back to who I am, my people, my lineage? How do I get back? And for me, and I've kind of shared this with Jonathan, maybe a little bit with you, B, I had to realize, you know what, Nikki? You're going to feel afraid. You're going to feel something in your body that's going to make you feel like, whoa, am I doing something wrong? You're going to feel like, oh, because this is years and generations in me that says connecting with a medium is wrong. Connecting with tarot, it's wrong. It's demonic. Practicing hoodoo, it's wrong. Divination and witchcraft, it's wrong. And so if I decide that I want to be curious and touch it, I already know on the front end, my body's probably not going to like it at first, but that doesn't mean it's not for me. That doesn't mean it's not something that I can explore. It's just understanding. If I let everything make me afraid, I would never even be doing this work that I'm doing now. So go ahead. I see your mind is moving. You have something to add to that?
No, I was like, yeah, like do it scared, do it anyway, right? And what if you connect and then your body doesn't do anything and you're like, wow, I just had a conversation and I feel cool. I think I could go take a walk. You know what I mean? What if you're convinced that something is going to happen that doesn't ever occur because your ancestors walk with you in a way so they know what's the best and most peaceful or with ease way to connect with you? Because what if they don't connect with you by a full vibration, but it's a spark of an idea? It's a thought. It's a post that you see that you randomly wouldn't have been looking at, but you took the wrong route, you know? So when we think, because even me as a medium, I got out of the business of trying to convince people to that this is not demonic and to get a reading a long time ago, right? People used to be pleading the blood of Jesus and me and stuff. I was like, plead over your mama, you know? Um and I used to do energy readings all the time. I only do energy readings. I don't do tarot. Da, da, da. I was like, I'm buy that. But I'm like, I do tarot, I do intuitive messages, and then I'll be like, I don't do mediumship. How can I say I don't do mediumship when these ancestors are speaking to me? So I'm choosing not to make sure that I have the proper protected spiritual foundation to convey these messages with these God-given gifts just because I don't care what it look like, you know what I mean? Or just because 'cause I'm afraid of what people will say to me. So, fear is a
Mhm.
colonial
Yeah.
construct, and
Yeah.
it goes with
Basically.
shame. These
Yeah.
people have known me all my life. I don't want them to think I'm doing something wrong. No, baby, absolutely not. This is who I am wholeheartedly, and you will have to either accept it or not. It's your prerogative, but I'm not adjusting who I am to be palatable to people who don't understand who they are.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what does Second Timothy? The Bible says, "For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind." So where is the fear? What do we think is going to happen?
Hello, the Bible Belt, because they was beating King James into us, literally. What's gonna happen? Somebody gonna starve of our resources? Last time I checked, when they gave us scraps, we made full-fledged Thanksgiving dinners. It's the reason why people can't wait for the chitlins and the hog mogs, right? And that's the other thing, a lot of us already have altars. You got that obituary from your little cousin Ray Ray with a dried out flower on your dresser next to your perfume, but you ain't got no altar. You're making black eyed peas and greens to put in abundance, but you already acknowledging your ancestors subconsciously. So why don't you just lean into it?
So powerful, so powerful. This has been an amazing time with you, and I'm so grateful that we were able to debunk some of the myths and misconceptions and the lies and the untruths and all the things that have been projected onto us as a people to try to dilute, distort, brainwash, mind control, move us, displace, all the things to connect us to ourselves, to our true selves, to our ancestors, and to reinforce a sense of disconnection with who we are, and illuminating this and speaking to this is giving light to it. And we are living out our ancestors' wildest dreams. We truly are in this episode, in this season. So I really appreciate you, B, for sharing your journey and your insights with us. What would you like to say? What are some of your final thoughts or words of encouragement that you would like to offer to those who are listening, to those who are just taking in all this information? They might be considering what we've been talking about right now and moving forward into some of the spiritual practices and, moving along the spiritual path. What would you say to them, um, as they go across that journey?
Yeah, first, I just want to thank y'all again for just inviting me on this podcast. This has been such a great experience. I would say to those that are listening to embrace being connected. Your higher self is waiting on you. Your inner child is waiting on you. Your ancestors are waiting on you.
Yes, for sure. For sure. That's the truth. B, I want you to also talk about, Nikki. I want to get your final remarks and your words as well. Where can people find you? I know you have a lot going on and that you're working on for 2025 and beyond. And I just want you to just do a shameless plug for all the projects and things that you're working on so that people can find you and learn more about you and work with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every Sunday since the top of the year, the Divinity Prayer Line is non-denominational, non-religion prayer. We talk to God, we call on our ancestors, we pray it down every Sunday. So that's on Geneva. You can follow me at the B Flows. That's TheBeeflows on Instagram, and there you'll see just how to get to the prayer line to pray, to commune. If you're looking to book a reading, all of that information will also be there as well. For mediumship, I also tarot, I do past life readings, but I also offer spiritual consultations. And the spiritual consultations is just a service where it's like, I may not be one to get any of those things. I just have a question about spirituality, or I need a confirmation to know, is this a gift? Is this the lane? And so I offer a space for people in that way as well. But as far as community and just connecting with other people that are in so many different paths of their journey, they're Christians, they're Hoodoo, they're African traditional religions, they're just trying to figure it out. Definitely hopping onto the Amethyst Corner Geneva, connecting with us and praying. That has been prayer, that's been a theme for 2024 for sure.
I know that's right. And I have taken advantage of your resources, and you are a powerful person. And I thank you so much. And for those who are listening, please follow her, support her. She's doing some amazing things and she has an amazing community. So yeah. And Nikki, did you have anything that you wanted to share before we take out the episode?
Yeah, just, I want to encourage people who have been through a lot of religious abuse, a lot of, dealing with a lot of trauma, and you might find yourself at a precipice right now or, a crossroads. You don't know what you want to do with your faith. You don't know what you want to affiliate yourself with, but you long to be connected spiritually. I get that because when I came out of a lot of the cults, dynamics I was in for a couple of years, I didn't wanna feel anything spiritual, I didn't wanna see anything, I didn't wanna dream anything, and I feel like God just gave me a pause because I needed to catch my breath as far as what I had experienced, but then I thought I was ready mentally, but then that longing to connect spiritually was getting louder and louder and louder. And I'm not going to go into my whole story as how that got reawakened and connected. But I say all that to say, if that is you and you still have that hunger to connect spiritually, but you just don't know what it looks like anymore, you don't know what the path forward looks like, I would really, really recommend you connect with B and avail yourself of her services, especially the spiritual consultations. That sounds so amazing, and it's a way to really get a lot of your questions answered. Imma speak for her because I think I can say this. This is not where she's telling you what to do. She's
Mm,
helping you to explore and understand because that is your decision where you wanna go post-cult, post-religious abuse, post-religious trauma. But your spirituality and your connection with your creator and the divine, that is yours. Colonialism should not be able to take it away. What we're dealing with in 2024 with systemic racism should not be able to take it away. You know, that is yours. And if you feel like, well, Nikki, I lost it, I don't know, even know how to get it back. Well, this episode has been for you. And you know what? African spirituality may not be your path, but at least you have more understanding and awareness of it where you're not denying your lineage. You're not denying your ancestors. You get some understanding and you can move on from there. But don't exist in this life without connecting spiritually, especially if you have that hunger in you and you know you've had dreams. Your heart door has been knocked on. You just like, I just need that person to help. But I'm afraid because I know what happened when I've been under somebody. They're supposed to guide me. And this is why our sister said today throughout the whole thing, discernment, discernment, discernment. But here we are bringing a resource to our community and saying, start with B, discern her too, and see if this is something that you can learn from. Again, this is not about pointing anybody in any particular direction because you know the path that you should take. But I want to encourage you all. I know it's been a hard journey coming through religious abuse and trauma. I know it hurts. And again, it feels like somebody took a machete and cut your umbilical cord between you and your creator. But I am a witness that it can be restored. You know, it just takes some time, some patience. And when you're strong enough, some mentors that are not going to abuse you, but honor you and help light a fire in you for you to connect with the pathway you're supposed to go down. So I say all that to say, thanks again, B, for an awesome episode with us. You know, we are grateful. We're going to put everything in the show notes for you to get in contact with her. Please check out all her resources and share this episode with a friend. And
Thank you
I'm out.
all. Yes, thank
Awesome.
y'all so much.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I really appreciate. There's a lot of things that you cleared up for me too. Just you know, my whole misinformation and misperception that were projected onto me about ancestral spirituality. I think you know, you speaking about these things have really helped me, and just how Black religious trauma has really distorted our perception of our reality and disconnected us from who we really are and whose we are and where we have come from and who we have connected to, our ancestors. And I think the message, the call to action is to connect to community, connect with our ancestors, connect with ourselves, connect with those who have the supports and the resources to help you, to guide you through your path, to help you to go through whatever it is that you're going through in your journey, despite the political climate, despite the administration, despite the dominance, despite all the things, all these forces that are coming against us. And we have tools, we have resources that have been used for decades, for generations, that can we can tap into those things to help us and to support us and to ground us so that we can be the highest version of ourselves. And so I really thank everyone, Nikki and B. And this is Surviving the Black Church. Feel free to submit your stories, your experiences to us. Stay tuned for the next episode. We're excited to bring more and more content to you. And yeah, just let me know, you know, like, subscribe, download, join our Instagram, Surviving the Black Church. And we have many more resources to provide to you as we go into 2025. And until next time, this is our episode. Until we meet again. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.